Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a source that doesn't just offer self-help tips. It really challenges some, deeply ingrained ideas about self-worth, agency, and, well, the very nature of our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What's truly revolutionary here isn't like a new bubble bath routine, but a radical rewiring of who you believe is responsible for your joy.
Indeed. We're dissecting the core insights from the book Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers by Tam Kaur. And like you said, this isn't just about superficial self-care or, inspirational quotes we see everywhere.
Right.
This is a profound reevaluation of how we approach our own well-being. It's really an invitation to a truly foundational shift in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission for this deep dive is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from what is, I guess, essentially a call to arms regarding self-love and empowerment.
Mm-hmm. A call to arms is a good way to put it.
It's all about how it invites you, our listener, to reclaim your power and truly become the primary source of your own joy. So get ready for some powerful aha moments, because we're going to explore what happens when we stop, romanticizing struggle and unreciprocated effort.
Yeah, and start celebrating the undeniable power of choosing ourselves.
Exactly.
Precisely. It's about moving from a mindset of passive waiting for external validation to one of active self-provision and the profound liberation that blossoms from that choice.
So let's start with that title, Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers.
Yeah,
It's so direct, so unapologetic.
it really is.
The source material emphasizes this isn't literal, right? It's symbolic. A declaration of independence and self-agency.
Exactly.
What immediately strikes me is how this phrase shifts the entire locus of control for happiness from, external forces to our own internal choices.
Mm-hmm.
For listeners who might feel perpetually stuck in that waiting game, what does proactive self-care truly look like beyond the concept? How do they even, begin to make that internal shift?
Well, that declarative statement is definitely a wake-up call, isn't it? Historically, society has often subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, placed an expectation, particularly on women, to wait.
Right, to wait.
To wait for a partner, to bring them flowers, to validate their feelings, to make them feel special, or maybe provide security. Think about all those pervasive narratives in pop culture.
Oh yeah, the damsel in distress.
Exactly, or the woman waiting for her prince. This book fundamentally refuses that waiting game, and that makes it a radical act of self-assertion.
So it's about saying, I don't need to wait.
Pretty much. It's about recognizing that you don't need a special occasion or someone else's initiative to experience joy or feel valued. When you proactively choose to provide for yourself, whether it's literal flowers or maybe a quiet evening you've planned, or even just acknowledging your own needs, the internal empowerment is stark.
Stark is a good word.
It's a refusal to delegate your well-being. For someone perpetually stuck, it begins with small, deliberate acts. It could be noticing a desire for something simple, like a quiet coffee, a new book, and instead of hoping someone else provides
You
it,
just do it yourself.
you consciously decide, I will provide this for myself. That simple act starts to break the cycle of external reliance.
And that leads directly into the immediate, visceral experience of liberation, doesn't it? That feeling that comes from no longer needing to rely on others for joy or care.
Absolutely.
I mean, imagine the sheer mental load lifted when you realize you don't have to wait for someone else to notice you need a break or a pick-me-up or even just some simple beauty in your day.
Oh, definitely.
The book really hammers home the immense freedom in that.
Psychologically, the burden of constantly waiting for others to fulfill one's needs is truly immense. It's almost like carrying this invisible backpack full of unspoken expectations.
Backpack of expectations. I like that.
And it manifests as anxiety, chronic disappointment, a pervasive sense of incompleteness.
Yeah.
When you stop waiting, an enormous amount of mental and emotional space just opens up.
Right.
Instead of occupying your thoughts with questions like, will they remember or will they show up for me this time? That energy is freed.
So what do you do with that energy?
Well, it can then be redirected toward, self-nurturing activities, genuine self-discovery, or maybe building connections that are chosen from a place of abundance, not desperation.
Abundance, not desperation. That's key.
It really impacts overall well-being by fostering a profound sense of inner peace, self-reliance, and an authentic connection to your own desires and needs, rather than being dictated by, external expectations or perceived deficits.
Yeah.
The constant scanning for external validation is exhausting. Releasing that allows for true restoration and the rediscovery of your own inner landscape.
Here's where it truly gets captivating for me. the power in becoming the primary source of your own joy and care. This isn't just about independence. It's like a foundational shift in how you relate to yourself, a deep self-affirmation. It's about, as the saying goes, filling your own cup
Right.
rather than constantly seeking someone else to fill it for you.
Right.
What does that actually look like day to day for someone trying to cultivate that mindset?
Precisely. And this connects directly to the concept of an internal locus of control, essentially, believing you are in the driver's seat of your own life and happiness, not external forces.
Okay.
And this isn't about being selfish. It's about being foundational.
Yeah.
If your own cup is perpetually empty, you have nothing truly authentic or sustainable to offer others, right?
Makes sense.
And you become vulnerable to depletion and resentment. By becoming the primary source of your own emotional well-being, you cultivate this reservoir of inner strength and self-sufficiency.
So day to day.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Day to day, filling your own cup means recognizing your own emotional needs and meeting them proactively. It could be dedicating specific time to your hobbies, saying no to a draining social engagement, taking a walk alone, or even just sitting with your own thoughts without distraction.
So small things, but conscious things.
Very conscious. It's a conscious decision to nurture your inner self rather than waiting for someone else to do it. And this allows you to engage with others from a place of abundance and choice rather than neediness or desperation.
Yeah.
It truly transforms relationships from being perceived as like a source of validation into opportunities for shared growth and genuine connection.
That foundational shift, becoming the source of your own joy, it leads us directly to the book's core message about the true nature of self-love, which is certainly not what many of us have been taught it is. Our source material is really clear on this. Tam Kaur reframed self-love as a fundamental necessity for emotional survival, distinct from, that superficial bubble bath and chocolate aesthetic.
Right, the Instagram version.
Exactly. We've all seen that curated version of self-care, but this book says, no, that's not really it. It's a call to something much deeper, much more resilient.
That's a powerful distinction. The book intentionally dismantles the often commercialized or, frankly, trivialized notion of self-love. It pushes past the ephemeral to the truly substantive aspects of what it means to care for oneself deeply.
Substantive, yeah.
Self-love, in this context, is a robust, active practice of safeguarding your inner world and well-being, not just indulging in fleeting pleasures.
Okay.
It's about building resilience, protecting your emotional resources, and creating a sustainable foundation for your life. It's not about being self-indulgent. It's about being self-protective.
And a crucial component of that, one so many of us struggle with, is holding your boundaries.
Oh, huge.
The book highlights its absolute necessity, not just as a preference, but as a vital act of self-preservation. What makes establishing and maintaining these boundaries so difficult? And what kind of inner strength does it truly require?
That's a really important question. Boundaries are often misunderstood, aren't they? People see them as acts of aggression or rejection.
Yeah, like you're being mean.
Exactly, when in fact they are fundamental acts of self-preservation. They define what you are and are not willing to accept, what is healthy for you, and where your emotional energy needs to be protected.
So why is it so hard?
The difficulty arises because setting a boundary often means saying no to someone else's desire or their expectation, and that can trigger fears of rejection, conflict, or being perceived as unloving or selfish.
The guilt factor.
Huge guilt factor. It requires immense inner strength, particularly when facing resistance or pushback from others who may have benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past.
Oof, yeah. The people who like it when you didn't have boundaries.
Precisely. For instance, if you've always been the yes person, suddenly saying no to an unreasonable request can feel incredibly uncomfortable, almost physically uncomfortable. But by consistently setting and maintaining boundaries, you prevent emotional depletion, you communicate your worth both to yourself and to others, and you actively maintain self-respect.
Right.
Without them, we become susceptible to burnout, resentment, and a feeling of being constantly taken advantage of, which is deeply detrimental to self-love. It's an act of courage to define your own space.
The book also bravely goes into leaving relationships that truly shrink you. This is such a courageous act, walking away from dynamics that diminish your worth. And it is undeniably incredibly difficult.
Profoundly difficult.
What makes this particular act of self-love so challenging? And, maybe on the flip side, what are the long-term benefits for a listener who manages to make such a choice?
It is profoundly challenging because leaving such relationships often feels like a deep loss, even when those connections are clearly detrimental.
Even when you know it's bad for you.
Especially then sometimes. This is particularly true when others have benefited, perhaps unconsciously, from one's self-neglect, from you being the fixer, the giver, or the endlessly patient one without reciprocal effort.
The unpaid emotional labor role.
Exactly. The internal conflict of choosing oneself over familiar but damaging patterns is immense. There's the potent fear of the unknown, the pain of severing ties, and the guilt that might be subtly or overtly imposed by others.
Yeah, the how could you messages.
You might even question if you're good enough to deserve something better. But the long-term benefits for the listener, they are transformative.
How so?
By making such a difficult choice, one opens up immense space for genuine connection, for relationships based on reciprocity and mutual respect, and most importantly, for an environment where one's own growth and well-being are truly prioritized.
Okay.
It's an investment in a future where you can authentically thrive rather than just survive. It's choosing your own expansive future over a shrunken present.
Choosing an expansive future. I like that framing. And part of that process of healing is reclaiming your power, right? Especially when you've been told you're too much or not enough.
Those labels. Yeah.
It's about that journey of taking back what was diminished, shedding those labels. How does the book suggest we actually begin to rewrite that internal script, especially when those narratives feel so deeply ingrained?
Well, reclaiming power isn't just about, believing in yourself in some abstract way.
Right, it's more concrete.
It's about recognizing that those labels, too much, not enough, were often crafted by people who benefited from you staying small.
Ooh, that's powerful. Say that again.
The insight is that these aren't your truths, they're someone else's convenient fictions.
Wow.
The process involves significant internal work to challenge and ultimately reject these external narratives that have been imposed upon us. These narratives, often absorbed from childhood, past relationships, or societal pressures, can erode self-worth over time.
So how do you challenge them?
Reclaiming power means critically examining these beliefs, understanding their origins like who told you that and why, and consciously deciding to discard them.
Okay.
This restoration of power profoundly impacts self-perception. It shifts you from feeling victimized by circumstances or the actions of others to feeling empowered by one's own choices and autonomy.
So it changes how you interact with the world.
Absolutely. It changes how you interact, how you present yourself, how you assert your needs. You're no longer seeking external validation, but operating from an internal sense of worthiness. It means actively questioning every self-limiting thought and tracing it back to its source, then deciding if that source truly serves your highest self.
This journey into self-love also touches on something very profound and often painful. Healing your inner child. It really connects our present self-love struggles to past experiences, suggesting that what we feel now often has roots in earlier wounds.
That's a crucial point. The inner child concept refers to the parts of our psyche that retain the emotions, experiences, and importantly, the unmet needs from our childhood.
Unmet needs.
Often, current patterns of self-sabotage, people-pleasing, boundary violations, or even feeling not enough are deeply rooted in these earlier experiences, particularly if there was a lack of emotional attunement, support, or safety back then.
Can you give an example?
Sure. A child who was consistently told to be quiet or not to cry might grow into an adult who suppresses their emotions and struggles to express their needs. Or a child who felt they constantly had to earn love might become an adult who overgives, always trying to prove their worth.
Right, trying to earn what should be freely given.
Exactly. Addressing these unmet needs of the inner child through self-compassion, through reparenting yourself with the kindness and validation you might not have received, and recognizing how past wounds play out in the present is absolutely crucial for cultivating genuine adult self-love.
It's about tending to those historical hurts.
So they stop dictating your present reactions.
Yes. And then there's the challenging, but ultimately freeing, idea of being okay with being alone. Our culture often makes solitude feel like a punishment or a sign of failure, doesn't it?
It really does.
But the book challenges that fear head-on and highlights its immense importance in self-discovery. What are the broader implications of developing this comfort with one's own company, especially for future relationships?
This is a significant marker of robust self-love. When you are truly comfortable with your own company, you dramatically reduce your dependency on external validation for happiness and fulfillment.
So you don't need someone else to feel okay.
Precisely. Solitude becomes a chosen space for reflection, creativity, and deep self-connection, rather than something to be avoided or filled at all costs with distractions or, worse, unhealthy relationships.
Mm-hmm.
The implications for relationship dynamics are transformative. When you are genuinely okay with being alone, relationships become choices rather than necessities.
Choices, not necessities. That's a big shift.
Huge. You enter partnerships from a place of wholeness, seeking connection and shared experiences because you want to, not because you need to fill a void. This strength in solitude allows for healthier, more equitable, and more fulfilling relationships because they are built on genuine desire, mutual respect, and a lack of desperation. You're no longer settling, you're choosing.
This deep dive into self-love inevitably leads us to the challenging but necessary conversation about relationships that actively undermine it, those toxic dynamics that chip away at our worth.
Unfortunately, yes. That's a reality we have to address. #3, navigating toxic relationships and emotional dependence.
The book really doesn't pull any punches here. It frankly addresses the painful patterns of settling, overextending, and accepting less in relationships, particularly those involving unavailable love.
It's very direct about it.
And it starts with the painful reality of settling for crumbs. So many people find themselves doing this, accepting minimal effort or affection. What are the underlying reasons people fall into this pattern, and how does it kind of perpetuate itself?
The underlying reasons are often deeply ingrained and complex. Individuals might settle for less than they deserve due to a profound fear of loneliness. The idea that any connection is better than no connection.
Yeah, the beggars can't be choosers mentality applied to love.
Exactly. Or an ingrained belief in scarcity, convincing themselves that this is the best they can get or that they simply don't deserve more. This often stems from a low sense of self-worth cultivated over time.
And how does it keep going? The cycle.
It's cyclical. You accept minimal gestures, like maybe consistently getting last-minute texts for plans instead of thoughtful invitations.
Oh yeah, the classic booty call text that you pretend is a date plan.
Right. And you still say yes, hoping it means more than it does. This hope keeps you trapped in a pattern of unreciprocated effort and emotional starvation rather than acknowledging the present reality of what's being offered, which is often very little.
So you focus on the crumb, not the lack of a meal.
Perfectly put. The crumbs might be inconsistent communication, vague promises, a lack of real emotional intimacy. The recipient clings to these small gestures as proof that something meaningful might exist or develop, always hoping for change, which ultimately prevents them from seeking genuine fulfillment elsewhere.
Then there's the particularly insidious trap of investing heavily in someone's potential rather than their present reality.
Yes, the potential trap.
For someone caught in that loop, pouring energy into a future that never arrives, what's the most painful realization the book brings to light? And how does it suggest breaking that almost addictive pattern?
This is a devastating dynamic, often fueled by a powerful fantasy. When you invest in someone's potential, you are essentially falling in love with an imagined future version of that person rather than who they are today.
Right, dating who you hope they'll become.
Exactly. It's a projection of what you want them to be rather than an acceptance of their current self. This drains an immense amount of one's energy, time, and emotional resources without reciprocal growth or reality-based fulfillment.
And the book mentions women raising boys into men.
It does highlight that common scenario where women take on the emotional labor of nurturing, guiding, and waiting for someone to become the partner they envision. But, the broader pattern of one partner constantly investing in the potential of another is something many listeners, regardless of gender, might recognize.
Absolutely. So what's the painful realization?
The most painful realization is often the sheer opportunity cost. While you are pouring energy into this imagined potential, you're missing out on opportunities to pursue present, healthy connections with individuals who are already aligned with your needs and values. Or,
we're investing that energy in yourself.
Precisely, investing it into your own personal growth and happiness. The book suggests breaking this pattern by shifting focus from their potential to your reality. Acknowledge what is, not what could be.
See what's actually there.
Yes,
Yeah.
That clarity is key.
And tied into that is the pattern of chasing unavailable love and trying to be the cool girl.
Cool girl trope.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is something many people relate to. Relentlessly pursuing those who are emotionally distant or unavailable. What's the internal dialogue that keeps someone trapped here? hoping that if they just make themselves small enough or understanding enough, they'll finally be chosen.
This often stems from a deep-seated desire to be seen as easygoing, understanding, or not needy. There's this hope that if you accept less, if you don't make demands, if you always adapt to their needs and distance.
Then they'll finally see how great you are and commit.
Exactly. Then one day you will finally be enough for them to truly commit or change. It's a self-sacrificial tendency driven by the fantasy that your acceptance of their unavailability will magically transform them into an available, loving partner.
So what's going on inside their head?
The internal dialogue is a relentless rationalization of poor treatment. Oh, they were just busy. They're just not good at expressing themselves. If I just show them how understanding I am, they'll see my worth and finally change.
Yeah, making excuses for them.
Constantly. This fantasy, however, traps you in a cycle where you are constantly sacrificing your own needs and emotional well-being for a mirage.
A mirage.
The hidden cost is immense. You lose your sense of self, you drain your emotional reserves, and you delay your own happiness, all in a desperate attempt to earn love that should be freely given. You become a chameleon, constantly changing your colors to fit someone else's elusive expectations.
Which brings us to one of the most powerful, non-negotiable truths from the book. You can't heal in the same place you were hurt.
Such a vital insight.
It is so direct, yet for many, physically removing themselves from a damaging environment isn't immediately possible. Are there forms of emotional removal the book suggests for those situations?
That's a potent truth. This statement emphasizes the absolute necessity of physical or emotional removal from damaging environments to truly begin the healing process.
Why is staying so bad for healing?
Staying in the same dynamic, the same physical space, or maintaining the same emotional ties to the source of your pain can perpetually re-traumatize you or prevent you from gaining perspective. The reason physical or emotional distance is often the first, hardest, but most vital step is because it creates a necessary buffer. It allows you to break free from the patterns, the triggers, and the influence of the unhealthy dynamic.
It gives you space to breathe.
Exactly. It provides the space to reassess, to grieve, to rebuild, and to establish new, healthier patterns of thought and behavior without the constant re-exposure to the very thing that caused the hurt.
But what if you literally can't leave right away?
If physical removal isn't immediately possible, then emotional removal becomes crucial. This can involve setting incredibly firm boundaries within the relationship, drastically reducing communication, disengaging emotionally from the dynamic.
What does disengaging emotionally mean?
It means mentally stepping back, observing the situation perhaps, but without getting sucked into the emotional reaction patterns, not taking the bait, so to speak. Seeking external support like therapy is also key. Or developing a strong internal narrative that separates your worth from the damaging environment. It's about creating an internal safe space even when your external one is compromised.
Buying yourself time and mental clarity.
Exactly, to plan a full exit if necessary.
While addressing these hard truths of relationships, the book also beautifully reclaims a powerful aspect of self-softness. It's not what you might expect, especially in a world that often demands toughness.
No, it's quite counterintuitive, which makes it so interesting.
Tam Kaur challenges the notion that softness is weakness, instead presenting it as a profound act of strength and self-love in a world that often demands toughness. So it really asks us to reconsider our definitions of strength, doesn't it?
Completely.
What's fascinating here is, how does vulnerability, kindness, and empathy, often associated with softness, actually require immense inner fortitude, especially after experiencing hurt or disappointment?
It absolutely does. In many societal narratives, strength is equated with, resilience in the face of adversity, stoicism, an unyielding exterior, or the ability to tough it out.
Right. Bottle it up, push through.
Exactly. However, the book compellingly argues that vulnerability, kindness, and empathy, those qualities often associated with softness, require immense inner fortitude, especially after being hurt or betrayed.
Why is that?
Because it takes a profound level of courage to remain open and compassionate when past experiences have taught you to put up walls and protect yourself.
To not become hardened.
Precisely. The true strength lies not in never feeling, but in allowing yourself to feel deeply, to express those feelings authentically, and yet choose to remain connected, to offer grace, and to cultivate compassion both for yourself and for others.
That sounds harder than just putting up walls.
It often is. This is a far more robust and sustainable form of strength than simply erecting barriers. It's the strength to say, I am hurting, and I will still choose kindness for myself and for what is good. It's the strength to allow yourself to be seen, to ask for help, and to embrace embrace genuine connection without letting fear of further pain shut you down completely.
And tied to this reclamation of softness are what the book calls radical acts of self-love, things like crying, resting, and choosing ease.
Mm-hmm.
In our hustle-obsessed culture, these truly feel countercultural. Why are these seemingly simple acts considered revolutionary?
They are revolutionary in their simplicity because they actively defy deeply ingrained societal pressures.
Yeah.
In a culture that relentlessly promotes productivity, constant achievement, and the glorification of busyness, the whole hustle culture.
Rise and grind.
Exactly. Choosing to cry, to rest, or to prioritize ease actively goes against the current. These acts are radical because they prioritize internal well-being over external output. They acknowledge that you are a human being, not just a human doing. Consider how often we feel guilty for resting or apologize for expressing emotion.
All the time. Sorry, I'm just tired, or sorry for getting emotional.
Right. Embracing these acts implies a rejection of that guilt. The implications are significant. Embracing rest and ease can lead to greater creativity by allowing the mind to wander and connect disparate ideas, rather than constantly being on that task treadmill.
Yeah, makes sense.
It fosters mental clarity by reducing cognitive load and chronic stress. And it builds emotional resilience by allowing the nervous system to regulate and recover, rather than remaining in a constant state of activation.
So they're not luxuries.
They're necessities for thriving, for true innovation, and for sustainable emotional health. They are profound acts of self-respect.
And underneath all of this is the book's powerful message that you don't need to earn rest, love, or peace. You're already worthy simply by existing.
That's the bedrock, really.
How does believing in this inherent worthiness change daily decisions and interactions?
This is perhaps one of the most foundational tenets of true self-love. The concept of inherent worthiness asserts that your value is intrinsic. It is not contingent upon your achievements, your productivity, your relationships, or what you can do for others. It simply is.
So connecting this to the bigger picture.
Believing in inherent worthiness allows individuals to receive without guilt or the incessant need to prove themselves. It means accepting compliments gracefully, allowing others to help you, and truly relaxing without feeling like you need to justify your existence or earn your downtime.
So how does that play out day to day?
It shifts your stance from being reactive, constantly trying to gain approval or validate oneself, to being proactive, where decisions are made from a place of self-respect and self-knowledge.
Okay.
You choose what serves you, what aligns with your peace, and what nourishes your inherent worth, rather than constantly striving for external validation or performing for approval.
It's liberation.
It is a profound liberation that impacts everything from how you spend your time to how you respond to criticism. You are enough, and you start to act like it.
This reclaiming of softness and this deeper understanding of self-worth often connects deeply to earlier life experiences, which leads us to the concept of healing the inner child, such a powerful and empathetic part of this book.
Yes, it's crucial for understanding the roots.
The book truly delves into the impact of childhood experiences, particularly trauma and family dynamics, on adult self-perception and self-worth. It starts by acknowledging the sensitive nature of childhood trauma and its long-lasting effects.
Remember, it handles it with care.
How do these unprocessed experiences from our past specifically manifest in adult patterns? Things like self-neglect, people-pleasing, or boundary issues.
It's vital to recognize that unprocessed childhood experiences, including various forms of trauma, and trauma isn't always the big, obvious events. It can range from overt abuse to subtle emotional neglect, can manifest in adulthood as deeply ingrained patterns that unconsciously dictate our behavior. For instance, a child who experienced emotional unpredictability might develop a chronic need to people-pleasers as an adult. They believe that anticipating and fulfilling others' needs will prevent conflict or abandonment.
Trying to control the uncontrollable.
Exactly. Or someone whose needs were consistently dismissed might struggle with self-neglect as an adult, not even recognizing their own exhaustion or desires. Boundary issues often stem from environments where personal space or autonomy wasn't respected.
So these adult behaviors are like echoes of childhood survival strategies.
Perfectly said. They are often unconscious coping mechanisms developed in childhood to navigate difficult or unstable environments. Until these roots are addressed through compassionate self-reflection and often professional guidance, it's very challenging to cultivate genuine self-love and establish healthy, reciprocal relationships.
You're trying to solve adult problems with a child's toolkit.
Precisely. We're essentially trying to solve an adult problem with a child's coping mechanisms.
And the book specifically highlights the unique context of immigrant family dynamics, which adds another powerful layer to understanding these roots. How do these unique pressures and expectations shape an individual's sense of self-worth and responsibility?
Yes, this is a significant and often overlooked aspect that the book addresses with great nuance. Immigrant families can carry unique pressures and expectations that profoundly shape an individual's sense of self-worth and responsibility.
Like what kind of pressures?
These might include strong cultural norms around sacrifice for the family unit and immense pressure to succeed as a form of honor or repayment for their parents' struggles.
The weight of expectation.
Immense weight, or specific cultural approaches to emotional expression where certain feelings are suppressed for the sake of harmony and collective well-being.
Hmm.
Imagine a child who constantly hears stories of their parents' sacrifices, feeling an immense obligation to achieve, even at the cost of their own passions or emotional health. Or someone taught that emotional displays are a sign of weakness, leading them to internalize all their struggles.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Balancing personal needs and desires with intense family loyalty and cultural expectations can create significant internal conflict. It can contribute to a lifelong struggle with prioritizing oneself. The weight of cultural expectations is very real, and it's a profound challenge to navigate personal growth when it feels like a potential betrayal of one's roots or family values.
Another powerful and very relatable experience the book touches on is the eldest daughter role. So many listeners will connect with being that responsible, expected to sacrifice figure.
Absolutely. It resonates widely.
What's the specific burden of caretaking and emotional labor often thrust upon eldest daughters? And how do these early roles contribute to feeling tired from carrying everyone else's weight as adults?
Yes. The eldest daughter role is a particularly common dynamic, often involving an unconscious yet heavy burden of caretaking and emotional labor. These individuals are frequently expected to be responsible, to be the good child, to support younger siblings, and often to mediate family conflicts or carry emotional weight that is not their own.
The little adult.
The little adult, the family's emotional shock absorber or problem solver. Their own needs are consistently deprioritized as they learn to derive their worth from being helpful and indispensable to others.
How does that lead to adult exhaustion?
This early role can significantly contribute to adults feeling tired from carrying everyone else's weight. It's a deep-seated exhaustion that stems from a lifetime of emotional overextension and neglecting their own well-being. It shapes how they interact with the world.
Repeating the pattern.
Often, yes, leading them to replicate these patterns in their adult relationships, becoming the default caregiver or problem solver for friends, partners, and colleagues, eventually leading to burnout and resentment. It's a beautiful trait of caring, but often at a profound cost to the self.
It's clear that healing from these deep roots isn't linear. The book really emphasizes that progress isn't always upward.
Definitely not.
And sometimes the first and most crucial step is simply acknowledging your exhaustion and the immense burden you've carried. This raises an important question. What does it mean to give yourself permission to be tired? And how does this radical act open the door to actual healing?
That's a profound point, and one often overlooked in the rush for quick fixes or linear progress. In that mindset, feeling tired might be seen as a setback, a sign of weakness or failure.
Yeah, I should be stronger than this.
Right, but the book suggests it's a vital acknowledgement, a moment of profound self-truth. Giving yourself permission to be tired is an act of radical self-compassion. It's the first step in genuinely listening to your body and soul signals rather than pushing through or ignoring them.
So it's about listening.
Yes, it allows you to drop the masks of perpetual strength and competence and to confront the reality of your emotional and physical state. This acknowledgement then opens the door to actual healing because it creates the space for genuine rest, for processing emotions that have been suppressed, and for beginning to dismantle the patterns that led to that exhaustion in the first place. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. It's permission to be human, vulnerable, and to finally give yourself the compassion you so readily offer to others.
It's the permission slip you never knew you needed.
That's a great way to put it.
Acknowledging the past is one step. Actively rebuilding self-concept is another. And the book offers practical tools like mirror work to do just that.
Yes, moving into the how.
Tam Kaur advocates for practical tools like journaling, affirmations, and mirror work as methods to actively rebuild self-concept and undo years of, well, self-hate.
Active tools.
Journaling and affirmations are fairly common self-help tools. So let's unpack this. Why are these practices so profoundly effective in reprogramming negative self-talk and reshaping our internal narrative?
Journaling and affirmations are profoundly effective because they externalize internal thoughts. That's a powerful psychological process.
Getting it out of your head.
Exactly. When thoughts are kept solely in our minds, they can be chaotic, cyclical, and unchallenged, often feeling like an inescapable echo chamber of negativity.
Yeah, the hamster wheel.
Right. Writing them down or speaking them aloud as affirmations forces them into a more concrete, tangible form. This allows for critical examination. You can see negative thought patterns on the page and then consciously challenge and redirect them.
So it's about making them visible.
Visible and therefore addressable. Affirmations specifically work to reprogram negative self-talk that has often been ingrained since childhood. They create neural pathways for new, more positive beliefs.
How does that work physiologically?
By repeatedly stating positive truths about yourself, like I am worthy, I am enough, I am loved, you begin to literally rewire your brain, slowly replacing self-criticism with self-compassion and empowering beliefs. It's about actively cultivating a kinder, more truthful inner voice that eventually becomes your default.
And then there's mirror work, which can feel a little intimidating, even awkward at first.
Oh, definitely awkward for many.
It's the practice of speaking kindly to oneself while looking directly into a mirror. What's the psychological power of this direct self-confrontation? And how does it help someone overcome that initial discomfort to truly build a new, positive relationship with their own reflection?
The profound psychological power of mirror work lies in this direct, unavoidable self-confrontation. It forces you to engage with your own image, to meet your own gaze, and to actively override any negative internal patterns linked to appearance, perceived flaws, or self-perception.
So it cuts through the usual avoidance.
Precisely. For many, looking at themselves in a mirror and speaking positive, affirming words can initially trigger deep discomfort, even self-loathing, because it highlights years of ingrained negative self-talk and subconscious beliefs about inadequacy.
It brings it all to the surface.
It really does. It's like confronting a stranger you've been conditioned to dislike, only that stranger is you. However, by persisting, by continuing to speak kindness, acceptance, and love to your reflection, you begin to break those patterns. You're essentially teaching your brain to associate your image with positive reinforcement. It's about seeing yourself not as an object to be judged, but as a being worthy of love and kind words.
Okay.
This practice fosters self-acceptance, builds resilience against external criticism, and allows you to truly see yourself as worthy of the love you often give so freely to others. It's an active process of self-reparenting your own perception.
The book itself is written with such a unique tone, described as empathetic yet firm.
Yes, that balance is key.
It's that blend of empathy with tough love, exemplified by that quote, "You deserve better. You are better. Act like it." How does this blend of compassionate understanding and accountability lead to genuine, lasting change rather than just, fleeting positivity?
That specific quote perfectly encapsulates the book's powerful balance. Pure empathy while validating might inadvertently keep someone stuck in victimhood or complacency.
Right, just feeling sorry for yourself.
And pure tough love without compassion for past struggles can feel harsh, unmotivating, and even re-traumatizing.
Yeah, just beating yourself up.
Exactly. This blend acknowledges your pain and past experiences with deep understanding. You deserve better, acknowledging the hurt you've endured, but simultaneously empowers you to step into your potential and take responsibility for your future. You are better. Act like it.
So it's both validation and the push.
Yes. This combination is crucial because it leads to genuine, lasting change rather than fleeting positivity or temporary fixes. It pushes you to move beyond intellectual understanding to actionable steps. It reminds you that self-love isn't just a feeling, it's a consistent practice of choosing and acting in alignment with your inherent worth.
Okay.
It encourages you to live out the truth of your worth, not just acknowledge it. And that active choice makes all the difference in creating sustainable transformation.
These practical tools reinforce the ultimate message, bringing us back to that central metaphor of the flowers you truly deserve.
Back to the flowers.
The flowers continually symbolize how you treat yourself, reinforcing the powerful message that self-nurturing comes from within, not from external sources.
It's a consistent thread.
So, revisiting this core metaphor, it emphasizes that the flowers represent any act of self-care, joy, or validation. How does this go beyond simple material gestures to encapsulate deeper, deliberate acts of self-love?
That's right. The flowers are not merely literal objects. They are manifestations of internal worth and deliberate self-love. They symbolize every choice you make to honor your needs, every boundary you set to protect your peace,
Okay.
every moment of rest you allow yourself, and every celebration of your own existence. These aren't just material gifts from others, but the tangible and intangible ways you demonstrate to yourself that you are valuable, that your well-being matters, and that you are worthy of care and attention.
So it could be anything, really.
Absolutely. It could be taking yourself out for a quiet meal, creating a peaceful space in your home, setting aside an hour for a hobby, or simply taking a deep breath and choosing not to engage in a draining conversation.
Right.
It's about consciously giving yourself what you need and desire, rather than waiting for someone else to notice or provide it. It's the daily accumulation of these self-nurturing acts that builds a profound sense of self-worth.
And the book clearly reiterates the danger of only waiting to receive these flowers from others, that perpetual agonizing state of starving for love.
Yes, that phrase really hits home.
What are the real-world consequences of living in that state of constant emotional hunger?
This connects directly to the concept of emotional dependency and the inherent unsustainability of relying solely on external validation for your sense of worth or happiness.
It's not sustainable.
Not at all. When you're constantly waiting for someone else to recognize your worth, to give you affection, or to initiate acts of kindness, you are in a state of perpetual emotional hunger. This starving for love looks like constantly seeking approval, agonizing over perceived slights, giving too much in hopes of receiving a crumb back,
Yeah.
and feeling a deep, persistent emptiness that no external gesture can truly fill. Here's where it gets really interesting.
What?
This reliance makes you incredibly vulnerable to manipulation and keeps you trapped in unfulfilling relationships. Any small gesture from an external source feels like a lifeline, even if it's inconsistent, unhealthy, or comes with strings attached.
Because you're so desperate for anything.
Exactly. You're always in a deficit, always seeking, never truly satiated, and prone to accepting less than you deserve because the fear of complete emptiness is so powerful. It's an exhausting and unsustainable way to live.
But the empowerment, the true transformation, comes from self-provision.
Yeah.
From buying your own flowers, taking yourself out, and repeatedly choosing yourself. This is the heart of the book's message, isn't it?
It is truly transformative, yes. When you actively and consistently choose to buy your own flowers, metaphorically speaking, when you take yourself out, when you prioritize your joy, when you protect your peace, and you choose yourself again and again, you are directly communicating to your soul, I am enough, I am worthy, I can provide for myself. This isn't just a fleeting thought. It becomes a deep-seated belief cultivated through these consistent, self-valuing actions.
It changes how you feel inside?
The profound difference in feeling when you provide for your own needs versus hoping someone else will is monumental. When someone else gives you a flower, it's a lovely gesture, a bonus. But when you buy your own flowers, when you create your own joy and proactively meet your own needs,
It's different.
it's an affirmation of your agency, your inherent worth, and your complete sufficiency. It shifts your internal state from one of deficit to one of abundance. You become whole, complete, and capable of generating your own happiness,
Okay.
which then allows you to engage with others from a place of genuine desire, not desperate need. You're no longer seeking to be filled, but choosing to share from your own overflow. #tagged outro.
Tam Kaur's tone throughout this book is bold, emotional, and undeniably empowering.
Whoa.
As our source notes, this isn't a sugar-coated positivity book.
Not at all.
It's raw, it's honest about heartbreak, loneliness, rage, and the often messy, circuitous process of rebirth. It really speaks to the full spectrum of human experience, validating the very real pain many of us carry.
What's truly fascinating here is how it speaks directly to those who have historically been conditioned to be the strong one, the fixer, the perpetual giver, the one who always shoulders the emotional burden.
Right, the one everyone leans on.
Exactly. It's a profound invitation for them to finally sit down, let yourself receive, and don't apologize for it.
That line gives me chills.
This message is incredibly liberating because it counteracts years, sometimes decades, of ingrained patterns where one's worth was tied to their ability to sacrifice or endure for others. It validates their exhaustion, acknowledging the immense weight they've carried, and gives them explicit permission to prioritize their own needs without guilt or shame. It's a recalibration of what strength truly looks like.
So if you've been waiting for a sign to love yourself a little louder, a little prouder, maybe this is it. Our deep dive's key takeaway seems clear. Loving yourself fiercely, embracing your inherent worth, and making yourself the priority is the most powerful sign you can give yourself. It's a true act of rebellion and self-compassion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core principles from this deep dive are truly foundational to a life of emotional freedom. It's about buying your own flowers, both literally and metaphorically, taking radical responsibility for your own joy.
Yeah.
It's about allowing yourself to feel and cry if you need to, understanding that embracing softness is the truest form of strength.
Okay.
It's about protecting your peace, which might mean setting firm boundaries, even blocking someone if you have to remove yourself from what hurts you.
Taking decisive action.
Yes. And ultimately, it's about loving yourself fiercely, not as an act of vanity, but as a fundamental act of survival, empowerment, and genuine self-regard.
So, as you move forward from this deep dive, what does this all mean for you, the listener? The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other one in your life.
It really does.
You are the home you've been searching for. The safe space, the source of comfort and joy you've perhaps always looked for outside yourself. Take a moment to really sit with that. What would it look like for you to truly come home to yourself this week? What small, radical act of self-love can you commit to, just for you, that affirms you are already worthy of all the good things?